This is Rogers TV.
Welcome to the 2022 local campaign, the Mayor's Debate for St. Thomas. I'm Dan Reith, your host. Our candidates with us today are Heather Jackson, Greg McCart, and incumbent Joe Preston. Welcome and thanks for joining us. The rules of engagement for today is very simple. Each candidate will be given a 2-minute opening where questions are posed specifically to the candidates. Each will be given a 1-minute response and the others will be given a 30-second rebuttal. Where questions are posed to all 3 candidates, each will be given a 30-second response and then a 30-second rebuttal if anyone chooses. And then each candidate will be given a 2-minute close. So let's not waste any more time because I know the viewers are here to hear you. Let's start with our openings and it being a bit of a traditionalist, ladies first. Heather Jackson.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for hosting, and thank you to Rogers for taping this and making this available for viewers in our community. My name is Heather Jackson. I'm born and raised here in St. Thomas. This is my community. This is our community. 19 years ago, my first niece, Meredith, was born and was one of the reasons I entered the municipal election in the city of St. Thomas, where I won one of 7 seats as an alderman. That number has now grown to 10 nieces and nephews that live here in St. Thomas, and I often wonder about their future and if they will be able to stay in St. Thomas after their education is complete. Will they put down their roots and start the next generation here, or will they need to find another community where they can work, live, and raise their families? I'm concerned that many are being forced out of our community because they cannot secure housing that is affordable for them. And without a stable home, it's difficult to keep a job or go to school, deal with mental health issues and addictions, raise a family, or feel like you belong in a community. The number of youth experiencing homelessness in our community is growing, and these youth are younger than ever. Our downtown is at a tipping point as we struggle to deal with how to support our most vulnerable community members and balance that with the needs of our businesses. Transportation within our community is still a struggle for many. While the city has attempted to fix the transit by adding a Sunday service and on-demand service, it has in fact made it more difficult for a lot of people in our community to access the transit service and takes much longer for people to get around to town, to go to work, or more importantly, to be able to get home from work after their shifts, get to school, an appointment, or run errands. Arts and cultural funding is important to our community and to our tourism industry, and it is time that the city established an arts and culture office at City Hall. I am a collaborative leader, and I believe that bringing together all involved in an issue, including those with lived or living experience, is the way to find the solutions for our community. Thank you.
Mr. McCart.
Thank you for having me here today to speak, and thank you to Rogers TV. This election is about bringing St. Thomas into the future. This includes ensuring no one is left behind by actively seeking solutions to bring down the cost of living at the municipal level. I believe a temporary oversupply of housing units geared towards the lower income folks will start to bring down the cost of rent across the city. We must make sure we provide housing for single people, low-income seniors, and the disabled population. We also need to start providing commercial office space and encouraging tech startups to come lay down roots in St. Thomas. The near future is going to see a lot of tech development. St. Thomas is strategically located in an ideal place for large potential future growth. Electric vehicles are coming, and we can prepare by providing a local charging station and promoting more usage of solar panels. I think we can anticipate electricity costs to continue rising, and any investment in solar will enrich homeowners that will benefit from the massive savings. Our small businesses are still recovering from the pandemic. I think the city can do more to reduce the impact. Perhaps a temporary small rent subsidy for new and existing businesses can be achieved. At City Hall, we can show our support. Businesses are not immune to the rising rental costs experienced in an unprecedented short amount of time. This program might help people considering opening up a business in St. Thomas get started. Our city can improve the situation for the less fortunate and the downtown core by moving some services under one roof, where a wellness center for our community can be created. Unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures. We cannot be afraid of doing things different. I believe we can set an example for others to follow. Under my leadership, we will.
Thank you. Mr. Preston.
Well, thanks, Dan, and thanks, Rogers, for letting us all share views today. I'm Joe Preston. I'm your current mayor, and for 32 years, a business person, entrepreneur, and job creator here in St. Thomas. And I've done many community initiatives on top of the political side, but with the chair of the United Way, chair of the Downtown Development Board, chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and a number of other issues here in St. Thomas. So a working knowledge. President of the Downtown Development Board for a number of years. We also have a weekly online show called Mayor's Update that we do to try and share what's happening within our community and at City Hall to try and be as transparent as we can. And in my 4 years of mayor, we've made it a full-time job for the mayor of St. Thomas. I'm looking to continue the path that this council has started, and that is a growth path of housing in our community, specifically supportive housing and sheltering housing. There was not a full-time shelter in this community when I became mayor 4 years ago, and now we're asking our builders and us as a community to build about 500 or more housing units a year to match the growth that's happening in St. Thomas and to project into the future as to the need and the supply and demand from a cost point of view. We're talking about having a more vibrant community too, about more festivals and a more festive downtown, and servicing our new industrial lands in order to create more jobs here in St. Thomas, and also to have a thriving community, a community that with additional funds for roads and bridges, this council has added an extra $500,000 a year in each of its 4 budgets, and will continue to do so to catch up on the asset base in our community. I look forward to further questions today, Dan, and thank you for having us.
Great, thank you, Joe. And I want to start with the candidate-specific questions, and each candidate will get 1 minute to respond, and then the others can have 30 seconds to rebut if they wish. First question to incumbent Mayor Preston. You identified that St. Thomas is a compassionate community.
Yes.
Specifically under your leadership, how has St. Thomas become more compassionate over the last 4 years?
Well, in my first year as mayor, we discovered on a very cold day in April that we didn't have a shelter. All right. The winter shelter closed April 15th and wasn't going to reopen again till November 15th. And so I quickly asked, excuse me, but as a compassionate community, we don't just put people on the street for 6 months, do we? Yes, that was the case. So working within Out of the Cold and a fantastic community group, we first have gone from the shelter being part-time to being full-time, and then over on a number of other reiterations, building a brand new shelter and making it 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. So from a compassionate point of view, we've also added the supportive housing piece, which is the step from the shelter to full-time housing. So supportive housing within Dwell, in the sense that there's 24-hour mental health and addiction support in the housing that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Mr. McCart, would you care to rebut?
I'll just take this opportunity to mention last winter there were a few people being turned away in the middle of the winter, and maybe we could prepare for that better this season. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Very similar to what Mr. McCart has said, that the immediate concern is the number of people that can't stay in the shelter because of numbers, and some people that are, afraid to be there for their own reasons. So what is the plan to deal with folks and to house people, get a roof over their heads for the winter? We've heard stories. I worked for the United Way during COVID. I know how much people were forced outside. We see people dying on the streets, people choosing to stay in a shed in the backyard because that's what they thought that was the only option available to them. So what are we going to do to really be a compassionate community?
So to that end then, what is your solution? 30 seconds for each of you. What is your solution?
We need to do better. We have space available within this community, and we need to get people inside, get them a roof over their head, work with property owners, business owners that have space in the community. Let's help people. They're not going to survive in a tent overnight this winter. We know it's getting cold already. We've got a frost warning tonight, and we've already had frost. So let's do our best. Let's get folks housed. Let's assess them, and let's see what they need to be able to further their lives and to continue find permanent housing.
Mr. McCart, how would you solve the problem?
We need to bring back a flex capacity at the homeless shelter. There was at one point, but it got removed, and that's when the problems started happening, where 6, 7 people sometimes turned away. Heartbreaking. I was working there at the time, and I believe they do have room, but they need more support. I think they are going to have to hire one more person on night shift and a few more cots, perhaps maybe extending into the basement of that particular building could be a solution. Thank you.
Well, I agree with Gregory. That's exactly where we've been with the board from In Out of the Cold. We know we need to have some right now capacity as we start to move into winter. We have the Queen Street building under construction. 45 units of supportive housing will finish in April, but we've got to get between now and then. So we've been asking for the emergency capacity and the emergency protocol. And In Out of the Cold was talking to us about that just today. So we know we can. It won't be perfect, but it will get us through to when the next bunch of supportive housing opens in our community.
Okay. Let's talk about affordable housing for a bit. Mayor Jackson, the number one item on your platform is affordable housing and sustainable growth. As mayor, how would you make this happen better, faster, and more meaningfully than has happened over the past 4 years?
Thank you, Dan. Great question. So we have recently just had a provincial election in which the provincial government has promised to build 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years. We need our piece of that funding, and we need it ASAP. So we need to know what their plan is. We need to get our hands on that. We need to meet immediately with our MPP and say, these are our needs, our concerns, and we need to have that housing funding available to be able to work with our local developers to be able to implement and build housing that is affordable, truly affordable for people. We had some great success. The former Valley View site here in the city is 100% affordable housing that was built by local developers, but we had to have provincial and federal money to be able to make that happen. With that funding in place, we would need to put policies in place to change our policies and make sure that we're setting standards for number of units that are affordable in real numbers. Not 5 out of 160 units is really not going to make a dent. So we need a lot more.
Mr. McCart, rebut?
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Preston?
Well, I agree also, and it's steps that the municipality is already taking. We have, as I said, we have under construction right now a number of supportive and affordable housing units. But the other thing that we've done in this last 4 years, go door knocking on major developers, large apartment builders. And you're right, we're asking for each of them to give us some affordable units in their buildings too. But it wasn't done before, it is now. And we need to, the way to get affordability is to increase supply. We currently are at undersupply, and we have to have more in order to lower the cost of living in St. Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Mr. McCart, how would you solve the affordable housing issue? Why are you best suited to make it happen?
Well, I have lived experience living in mostly in a, I wouldn't say poverty, but just low income, and through most of my life. I think we can do a better job supporting the existing programs like the YWCA, Project Tiny Home. It's ongoing. Tiny homes are affordable and can greatly increase the quality of life for people and families in our community. We are in a crisis, and we need to start acknowledging it. We have to work with organizations like Indwell to find out more about units specifically created for those on the ODSP program. There are likely more than 1,000 people in St. Thomas who are really struggling right now and placed in distress if they're having to find a new place to live. There isn't anything available. Indwell has been able to provide units that suit this need in other communities. We have to approach them now and get another project started. The Queen Street is a good start, but I think adjustments could be made to the current plan. I vision this project as a home for people with addiction issues who need a high level of support and life skills training. We need to ensure future builds will include a high number of affordable units. There's a 10-year wait list that remains unaddressed. Thank you.
Mr. Preston?
Well, that's exactly what we're working with Indwell. The Queen Street project that's under construction will open in April is exactly on-site, 24-hour-a-day mental health and addiction supports. And so I thank Gregory for pointing that out. We recognize that homeless is probably the most serious crisis. There is an affordability piece above and beyond that, but as we can house the people who currently are not housed whatsoever, then the next step is to continue to move towards more affordability. City of St. Thomas is responsible for housing all across Elgin, and we continue to work with all our partners on that.
Ms. Jackson?
Well, I think we have to think about folks that we talk a lot about increasing capacity at the shelter, but there's a lot of folks that don't want to be in that situation. They just don't feel safe. They don't feel it's for them. So we need to remember that there's a lot of people out there that that don't fit into that mold, that we need to find them housing as well. And I'm really concerned about those folks that are now kind of living off the grid around the community. And we need to do better. We need to be demanding more units for affordable housing, and we need to make sure that it is truly affordable.
Okay. Ms. Jackson, in your campaign literature again, you identify community safety as a priority, bold letters.
Mm-hmm.
Why and how do you plan to make it so? And is the relocation of In Out of the Cold out of the downtown core part of your plan?
Thank you, Dan, for this question. And I've been visiting our downtown businesses, as I did in the spring, as I try to do regularly and have conversations with folks. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of people that are frightened to go downtown to shop. We have property business owners that are walking people from parking lots to their stores because people don't feel safe coming downtown. There are some individuals that are very erratic behavior, and it is frightening to folks to be there. So we do need to do more. We need to help those folks. We need to talk to them, maybe get them into some facilities. Maybe they need some treatment. Maybe they just need support and a friendly face. Maybe that's all they need some days. So we need to determine what it is to help folks. And we need to make sure that people feel safe coming downtown. I have never been downtown and not felt safe until very recently, because there are some individuals walking out in traffic, punching car windows and swinging wildly things around, and it's just unacceptable.
Thank you. Mr. McCart.
Well, it's no secret that the methamphetamine has just ravaged our community and all communities. Rather than move the inn, I'm more interested in getting the people housed. I know from talking to them and working there that at least 60% of them could be housed today if we had a place they could afford. So that would immediately, a 60% reduction in the usage of the shelter would provide a great relief for the business owners that are concerned with the loitering problem. Queen Street will obviously help alleviate the issue next April. I think we could do a better job with the pricing. I mean, maybe specifically for people on ODSP, because if you're charging $800 a month, it's going to be very hard for someone that gets $1,200 from ODSP. With the price increases, it's just, a lot of them will end up right back at the shelter, in my opinion. $100 a month to someone on ODSP is a big deal. It's the difference between misery and a decent quality of life for entertainment purposes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Groceries are just, the situation is untenable, and I'd like to see improvements.
Mr. Preston.
Well, I agree with Gregory. Supportive housing is the answer to what was described. Mental health and addictions are a serious issue. Recently, our police services have put in place a special constable system in downtown. That's been up for 3 weeks now, and I'm hearing nothing but great things from the business owners and customers downtown as to what a difference that has made and will make. They will be moving into an office very close to the Princess Street area that will, I think, also kind of help us with the people on the street and the customers that want to be downtown. We currently have a very vibrant business community downtown. We have to protect it. We have to be safe and make sure that people believe they're safe, and that's one way that for sure we will do that is with the special constable system and the growth of it next year. Also, Catherine, our beat officer, has always been there and will continue to be there, and she's such a lighthouse in the whole, a beacon to the whole thing. So we'll continue with that program too.
Great. Mr. Preston, you often identify St. Thomas as a thriving community.
Yes.
And certainly commercial and residential development are clear indicators of that right now. Is it luck? Or what, if not luck, what specific policies of the current council have made us the thriving community that we are in right now?
Well, the fact that we noticed that a lot of people wanted to come to St. Thomas, Dan, we've got over 1,000 people a year relocating, choosing St. Thomas as their home now. I like Heather, want young people to stay here too, but the thriving side of it is to make it so that there is that availability. So council looked at it from what we call the smart growth point of view, and that was to ensure there's enough housing being built. It's taken us a while to knock on the doors of some of those market rent builders and large apartment builders. We have that a lot in the stream now, and that will work. But we felt that it was also, with 1,000 people moving to St. Thomas, they needed employment. And so we will continue to work on the industrial side. All of our industrial factories are currently hiring. Royal Containers did just move here and added another couple hundred people to that workforce, but we're able to do more than that. So the thriving side is knowing the growth, predicting the growth, and taking the right actions to make sure that that growth is smart and all of the facilities that a city has to offer are available.
Ms. Jackson.
Well, I would have to say a lot of it is luck. During COVID, we saw a lot of people that are now working from home. And because of that, they were looking for somewhere to live that had a lower cost of living and more affordable housing. We know what housing is going for in the GTHA. So a lot of folks who have taken their work remotely thought they wanted a better life for themselves, for their families, and have moved to our community. We've also had a lot of retirees choosing to locate here in St. Thomas. I've had some great conversations at the door with a lot of folks in this community that have moved here from other places because they wanted to be in a central location. We're in a great location. It's, you know, a fairly, well, the drive to Toronto is getting a little more lengthy each time you go. I think it was about 3 hours the last time. It used to be a little shorter, but that's just traffic in general. But, you know, we're a great location. We're a great community, and we have wonderful things to offer. So, you know, that's why we're seeing so much growth here.
Mr. McCart.
Well, the secret is out. St. Thomas is a beautiful place to live, and people want to come here. We consistently get voted as one of the nicest communities in the entire nation if you search it out online. We need to maintain this. It's a great place to raise a family. I grew up here, and I loved it. I agree with Heather about the work from home situation, driving up our community's prices, and because this is an ideal place in the middle of Southern Ontario, close to London, for extra amenities above and beyond what we serve here in St. Thomas. And yeah, I think everyone has decided that we are one of the best communities to live in Southern Ontario. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mr. Ricard, I want to ask you a specific question. We'll let the other two rebut on this, but you mentioned in your opening about some form of rent relief for businesses in the downtown. I'd like you to explain that, but specifically, how would you then support businesses who own the buildings that they occupy in the downtown and operate from? How would the city compensate them or help them out?
Well, I hadn't really considered the ownership part of that, but I mean, the people that I've talked to are experiencing the rental increases just like everyone else in the housing, and I think it's more about showing the support from City Hall. It's like, here, we know that this is unprecedented times, and we want to help. So if it's just a couple $100 to if they're an owner, it's still money in their pocket. They're running a business. Every dollar helps, I'm sure. And more about getting people just to understand that if they open a business in St. Thomas, City Hall is here for you. We know what the conditions are currently, and here's a couple $100. We can put that in the budget and help you out.
Do you see that then as an abatement of property tax or abatement of the
Yes, I mean, it could
DDB tax?
It could be put into the property tax as a rebate. But either way, I think it's just showing, it's more about showing that City Hall has their back under any circumstances, and we understand the problems at City Hall.
Mr. Preston, you prepared to cut my taxes as a property owner?
Well, we did through COVID. We know when businesses were shuttered, and we offered an ability for you to not pay your taxes for a period of time and not accumulate interest on your taxes. And very few businesses or even homeowners in St. Thomas took us up on it, but it was something we offered. But Dan, you also know that we have our Economic Development Corporation and our Small Business Enterprise Center, which is very active, and now a Main Street program also happening downtown for all of those, whether they're startup businesses or other businesses in the downtown, to take advantage of grants and funds from other levels of government and our own Economic Development Corporation. So we continue to do it. We have a surprisingly vibrant downtown coming out of COVID, considering what has occurred, and we will continue to do so. As I said, I sit on the Downtown Development Board, so it's something that's near and dear to my heart as to what we can do next. But a great event last night, Bridges to Better Business, and so many great awards for downtown merchants and other merchants.
Ms. Jackson.
Thanks. I think it's an interesting idea. As Joe mentioned, there was during COVID the opportunity for people to apply to have that kind of tax abatement, I guess. But I'm concerned about the cost of what this would be, what that would be in our budget, that every single taxpayer would then be paying for giving back to those businesses just in the downtown. What about all of the other businesses that also struggled during COVID? We have a lot going on in this community outside of the downtown, a lot of issues that are affecting people. And the downtown, sure, some of the businesses are doing well, and same within other areas of the city, but I know of a business that had a $7 weekend last weekend. They sold $7 worth of merchandise all weekend. How do you survive on that? So I think there's a lot more that needs to be looked at, and it needs to be a citywide issue because we have businesses all over this community that have struggled during COVID, and some that didn't quite make it. So, it's tough, but we're asking a lot from the residents to pay for supplementing businesses.
Thank you. We're going to go to our flash round now. So these are 30-second responses. Okay. And if you feel the rebut, let me know, and we'll give you 30 seconds to rebut. So we'll start with Mr. McCart. If elected as mayor, what are your 3 top spending priorities?
I would like to see social housing. The budget item is one of the lowest things we spend money on. I think we need to at least double it. I think it's $2.5 million right now. I think the current need just demands that we pay more attention to that. Secondly, we need commercial office space. The tech startups the next decade are going to be a huge thing. Artificial intelligence, robotics, electric cars. There's all going to be third-party vendors. There's going to be a lot of new innovation in those 3 areas.
Ms. Jackson.
Can you repeat the question?
What are your top 3 spending priorities if elected?
Definitely around cultural funding for the community. In tourism, that's a huge piece. We need to make sure that we're appropriately funding activities that are happening in our community in order to draw more people here. We need to have things to do. And especially coming out of COVID, people are really looking for things to do. And so I think a tourism arts and cultural office would be a top priority. I want to see more investment in roads and infrastructure. We've got a lot of roads that need more work, and I won't get to the third one quite yet.
That's a red flag. Mr. Preston.
Well, I agree with Gregory on social housing. We have put a lot of eggs in the supportive housing basket, so we will continue to do that. We know that in order to meet Build to Zero, housing everyone, we have to spend the money there. As I said in my opening, we have added $500,000 a year to the road, bridges, sidewalk building in this community. We will continue that through this level of council too. That will bring us back to at least pretty even on the building side. The rest of the servicing has to be there too for us to grow as a community. So whether it's wastewater or water, we'll continue to work on that.
Red flag.
Yes.
Hospice, something that hasn't been touched on any candidate literature. Hospice is about providing equitable access to health and social services for everyone in our community, including the most vulnerable. Beyond simply the city donating land, do you see this as a compelling social obligation for the city to provide further financial assistance to hospice care and a hospice care facility in our community? Mr. Preston.
Well, I'll start. Sure. I mean, look, we've been working with hospice recently on the donation of land to them in a beautiful special spot for them to go forward. We've been working with them on their fundraising plans. But as a local businessman, for the last 15 or 20 years, we've been donating to hospice as in its different places in our community to get to this point. I think there's a real reality that we're the only county left that does not have a hospice, and we need to make sure that we make that happen.
Thank you. Mr. McCart.
I did a piece on hospice about a week ago on my Facebook page, was when they reached out to me about the meeting we had at the Queso the other day. And I was surprised to hear that we're the only community in southwestern Ontario and we're supposed to be the compassionate community, so it makes a lot of sense. I know that they're currently asking the city for a one-time funding. Is what they were telling me the other day. They just need one little bit of a boost and no ongoing funding. That's all they ask, and they can start construction this April. So I'm glad to hear that we're finally getting the facility.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, Dan. Supporting healthcare, a lot of people will say, oh, that's the province's responsibility. But as in the past, we have stepped up as a municipality. STEG during the Great Expansion, I led the discussion with council and with county council, and we came up with funds to support the hospital to be able to do that. And it just makes perfect sense that we would then support the hospice in the same fashion. It's so important to our community. As someone who's dealing with the healthcare system right now on a very personal level, we need to have these facilities available.
Thank you. Oops. Next question. Do you support the city taking a leadership role in the establishment of a safe injection site? And if so, where would you locate it? Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, Dan. This is something I talked about during the last election as well. That is something that is definitely needed in our region. Whether it's within St. Thomas or within the county, we need a facility here that helps people. It will allow, I've toured the one in London a number of times. I've seen their successes. And it's not just about providing people a space to go and get high. That's not what it's about. It provides them trained medical professionals in case there is something that goes wrong, as well social workers who are able to establish and build a relationship with them.
I have to cut you there. Mr. McCart.
As a compassionate community, as our tag, our mantra, I think that it's obvious. And the business owners are complaining about people shooting up behind their business. They don't want to see that. No one wants to see that. There are deadly drugs on our street. People are dying. I think that it's a no-brainer. We have to do this. Thank you.
Mr. Preston.
Yeah, I agree. But your question was city-led. This is going to have to be led by the health unit in the province. That's who makes those decisions. As the vice chair of our local health unit, so I'm involved on both sides of it. But we need to have it happen in our community, and we need to be at the table for the discussion for it.
Very good. As I say, some of my questions have come from community groups, so there's a bit of repetition, a few topics. But established businesses we know, are leaving the downtown core, citing safety concerns for customers and employees. I understand even the Tourist Information Center has had its door locked during office hours for worker safety. What's your solution to solve the problem? Ms. Jackson?
Thank you. Actually, I was speaking with a business owner yesterday who was asking, where did the security guards go? They're located right in the heart of downtown. And when the drop-in center downtown was open, there were security guards there, and they would tour the blocks as well. They say we do have the police there, and the police presence is appreciated, but it's just pushing things off of the main streets and back into the back doors. So we'd really like to see those security guards come back. They're probably a little more cost effective than having police officers as well. So I think that's one great step that we could take to ensure that safety.
Mr. McCart.
We've never really been dealing with this type of problem here in the downtown core, and I think a unique solution like a St. Thomas Wellness Center, which I have mentioned a few times during my campaign. We need to build somewhere away from the downtown core, but still in a convenient location to serve the homeless. We need to bring all the organizations that wish to use the space like that under one roof, because this will help coordinate their efforts together. I believe friendships will be formed, and we can better serve the community in that way. We can provide lower rents for these organizations.
Got a red flag there. Thank you. Mr. Preston.
Yeah, we had security downtown when we had a downtown rest center during the middle of COVID. We had to distance because of COVID, and so we were able to do that. There is security at the shelter, but more importantly, there's security at all of the supportive housing units that Indwell runs also. So as we move further into supportive housing, that level of security is also there. And as I already mentioned, Dan, as you know from the Police Services Board, we have now a whole team of special constables downtown which will really act to make this a much safer place.
Mm-hmm. I see a hand up.
Yeah, just on that, I don't know that security inside a building is going to help our business owners feel safe to be able to keep their business open. They need that visible presence on the street, and that's what I've been talking with business owners about this week.
Okay.
And not the police. They don't want the police. They say that security guards are what they're looking for.
Mr. McCart.
I think the new program with the constables is great. It's unfortunate that it had to happen just in the last month. I think we should have been doing that quite a while ago.
Well, as you know, we've certainly been trying to do it for the last 4 months, but the hiring in and uniforming up and deciding that it would be a police-driven project for special constables took us just a little while to get done, but we are finished now.
New topic. Do you support the city's investment in a new community center that includes an indoor swimming facility? Mr. Preston.
I'm still, it's part of our strategic plan, so I'm still saying yes, but part of that strategic plan piece is seeing the plans and seeing the bill. And you know, certainly with my relationship with the federal and provincial government, we know they're going to have to play on this one. This is not something the city can do on its own. I think we can safely do it in a growing St. Thomas if we can have the federal and provincial governments help doing it.
Mr. McCart.
I like the idea, but we have bigger priorities right now. I don't even think we should be considering that until we get a handle on the homeless and mental health crisis. It'd be nice, but we already have an aquatics facility at the Y, and they do a great job.
Yeah. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. So when I first got elected to council back in 2003, we were building the now Joe Thornton Center. So I've been through this process quite a bit. I agree we do have a facility, a pool in the community, but it's not accessible to everyone. I think as a growing community, we need to make sure we have the services and amenities that people are after. I'm not saying no to a new facility, including aquatic center at this point, but again, like Joe, I need to see the plans and see a little more detailed and whereabouts all of those plans and details and everything are. I think we have to be very mindful of the cost.
Great, thank you. With growth comes certain costs and responsibilities for municipal governments. Yes. Given current economic uncertainties, what do you believe is a prudent tax increase? And in terms of a percent for 2023. Ms. Jackson.
Start with me, all right. Normally councils talk about keeping things below at or below inflation. Well, if we talk about that,
that's like 8%.
Holy cow, that is absolutely crazy, right? We all know that. I think anything above 2% right now is just, it's too much for folks. We have obligations that you have to meet under contracts for salaries and that. So, we have to make those obligations and include a small increase in cost of goods for the city for our own facilities, but under 2%.
Thank you. Mr. McCart.
I agree with the 2% figure. We need to make sure that we get a little bit of a better budget this year for helping with the mental health crisis. Some of the organizations in town could use a little boost. A little bit of money will go a long way in some of these community-driven charitable organizations that we're currently not funding. So there should be a little bit of an increase, but I understand that now is not the time. People are on fixed income, are really struggling.
Okay. Mr. Preston.
It's the balance between those on a fixed income on their taxation of their homes and those that can afford more. We're in a time of higher inflation than that 2%. So if we're rewarding our employees' contracts anywhere in between the two, we will have some real hard times at 2%, but that's the goal. We're going to try and get there. But we don't want to not build supportive housing or homeless remediation because of that number. So we really want to hear from you as a citizen. There's a survey out right now. Let us hear.
Something the city's been very privileged in not having to do for a number of years is look at cutting services to achieve that ideal tax rate. Would you support the cessation of services to get 2%? And if so, are you bold enough to say what services you're prepared to support the cutting of? Mr. McCard.
I've done a little bit of research on the current budget here in St. Thomas, and there's a few items, but I'm not sure I'm willing to point them out.
Okay.
If I was sitting at the table, I think that because of the crisis and the complaints in the community about the homeless problem and the obvious mental health issues, there may have to be small cuts to some programs. We have to deal with it. It's not an option just to leave it as the status quo. Something's wrong and we have to fix it.
Mr. Preston.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Gregory. You want to see my copy of the budget there? We're pretty, marked up. I'm not certain there's a great deal of services that we could cut anyway. User fees is another place where some of that stuff happens. But I agree with Greg. If we start off as a housing priority and can accomplish some more there, then let's see what's left and what we're able to do.
Ms. Jackson.
I agree with Mr. Preston. At this point, we have done that for a number of years, cut the budget, and to get to where you are. And it's tough because all that leaves at the end of the day is people and services and programs. And, it takes a lot of guts to stand up and say, hey, we got to slash. I'm not gonna pick on any department or anything at this point. But I would be willing to look at that if we had to do that. But I think that we can manage and we can accommodate within our budget.
Thank you. St. Thomas declared a climate emergency during this past term of council. What specifically have you done personally to respect such a declaration? And what will you do if elected to ensure the actions taken by council are more than virtue signaling, but certain strong actions over the next 4 years? Mr. Preston.
Yes, well, I was part of the council that did that. It was a cooperative effort. It was brought forward. I suggested at the time that the federal government was more responsible for environment than the municipal government, but if the group under a cooperative effort really wanted to go that way. So as a community, we've put climate as a lens for almost everything we've done, whether it's electric buses or electric Zambonis or a better way to deal with waste or how to more efficiently run our fleet or our pollution control plant. Those types are the types of things that the city has done.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. I think that we need to have an environmental green energy master plan that looks at all of our departments and what they're doing and applies that lens every time there's a policy that comes up. If we're looking at building new buildings, why aren't we putting solar panels on them? Why aren't we asking that be done to be able to, and all city facilities should have. We've got a big, huge roof on some of our arenas. Why not some solar panels and bring some of our costs down?
2018 public transportation.
Greg got a chance
sorry.
to answer that.
Thank you, Greg. Sorry, apologies.
I think that the city could do a better job of promoting in-home solar power generation. It's like 1 in 100 roofs have solar panels, and that's not right. I know in the next decade the electricity price is going to go up, especially when we start plugging in cars, and everyone's going to be doing that sooner than later. I believe if people get accustomed to generating their own electricity, it's going to put more money in people's pockets. A couple $100s a month for every home in the city sounds great for spending money inside this community. I think we should prepare for that.
If I could rebut?
Certainly.
Real quick, we have some builders in this community, Doug Terry being one I'll really point out, who've done a fantastic job of net zero and homes ready for solar panels and the like. We need to be sure that as a community we're also doing that our planning department and building permit people are saying, please do this also. That's another thing we can do that we're leading, but we don't have to do. Our builders will do it for us.
Very good. Next question. In 2018, public transportation was a key issue. By some measures, it is still not to the satisfaction of all users. Does it need further improvements? And if elected mayor, what are you going to do to fix it? Mr. McCart.
Well, the transit, I've done a little bit of research on this, and I focused mostly on the interregional transports that we don't currently really focus on. I think we need to really look into increasing our bus service to other communities and encouraging people from other communities coming to St. Thomas.
Right.
I think things like, maybe not related, but having events downtown during the summertime every weekend and lowering fares coming into the town compared to leaving the city. Just simple things like that could really help. The ridership is going to increase because of the gas price.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. Again.
Transit 2018 was a hot issue. By some measures, it's still not to the satisfaction of all users. How would you fix it?
So as I stated 4 years ago during the election, I think what we need to do is scrap what we got, put it on the map, and build it out from scratch. Instead of adding and taking away and tweaking and doing all of this. As I've said, I've knocked on a lot of doors, talked to a lot of people, and I'm hearing from a lot of folks that have moved here from other communities that are used to a reliable transit system that doesn't take them an hour to get across the city of St. Thomas. Like, you could walk that rather than take the bus. And not everyone wants a car or has a car, especially those moving from other communities. So we need to seriously look at making sure everyone can access the service.
Mr. Preston.
Well, you know, it was a big part of my campaign in 2018, and I say promise made, promise kept. We had no transit at all in our community on Sundays. We had no transit at all from 6 o'clock on. As an employer, many people had to get back and forth to work. We promised we would fix that and have put in Sunday transit and on-demand transit across our community. It's been so successful that just this month we put on another bus on the on-demand system, and we'll continue to do that as the need for it continues. Our transit is way better now. It's not perfect yet, Dan. We can do lots more.
That's everybody. Thank you, sir. Now I'm feeling self-conscious. I'm going to forget somebody.
We'll hold the sign.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, quick question. You can give it a yes or no if you like. St. Thomas is in need of both more residential land for future development and industrial land. Do you support annexation of land from the surrounding communities to make it available to the city? Mr. Preston.
I don't support annexation. I support cooperation and communication with our local, with the communities around us. We can share services we have in exchange, and it's what we're doing right now in the Northwest from a land accumulation point of view for an industrial purpose.
Ms. Jackson?
So I believe we need to stop expanding outwards and going up further, and if we need to be going across the border, we need to be working with our local friends at the county and at Central Elgin and Southold to build these developments together. It's a great way for us to work together, keep costs down for folks, but also be able to continue to keep in mind that both Central Elgin and Southold have built their own pumping stations. They don't need as much from us as they used to. We used to do those trade-offs all the time, and now they don't need as much from us. They don't need us.
Mr. McCart.
I think when it comes to industrial lands, all the surrounding communities will benefit if we bring large industry to St. Thomas. There might be a problem now, but if there was an industry that came to St. Thomas that provided, say, 5,000 or more jobs, I think everyone would be quite pleased. And that's not impossible. I'm going to try to do that for our community. Residential lands, I think we still have space. There's a lot of potential for infill as well, so that's less of a concern. But the industrial part is important for all communities in this area.
Last question before we go to closing remarks. A lot of commentary in a lot of municipalities across North America these last few years have been defund the police. Do any of you support the notion, the mantra, defund the police? And if so, what would you do with those fundings instead? Mr. McCart?
I appreciate the St. Thomas Police Service's compassionate approach. I have witnessed them doing wonderful work on many, many occasions. They know who the troublemakers are, and they know how to act appropriately when it's called for. I trust their judgment. I've seen their good works.
Mr. Preston?
Yeah, look, Dan, you and I have even talked about this. It's not about the funding what we currently do. It's about being able to fund Canadian Mental Health Association, Addictions Ontario, and a number of other things. You know, I live with mental health in my own household, and it is not about taking from somewhere to give to pay Peter, Paul.
Peter, Paul.
Yeah, but we also have to really continue the conversation we're having with the court system. We really, truly have a bit of a catch and release system. Our hard-working police officers are out there working hard all day just to see people released the minute they're arrested.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. I do not support defunding the police. I think that it's a better approach to look at. People need to understand the budget and understand that most of the funding is in salaries. And we need those bodies. We probably could use a few more police officers. I know Chief Herridge would say that, and could use some more bodies to be out on the streets and helping. But it's those other pieces of their jobs that Joe mentioned that that they're now taking on, that we need to find better uses and better funding sources. So we're not funding from the police budget for mental health supports.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure having had this opportunity to ask you questions and hear what you have to say. And you at home, we certainly hope you've heard information that's going to help you make your decision when it comes election day. We'll now go to our closing remarks, and each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to convince you why they're the right person to vote for mayor, or inexplicably tell you why you shouldn't vote for them. We'll leave you to decide. Since we started with Ms. Jackson, we'll begin with Mr. Preston.
Well, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Rogers, for this time. And boy, does the time ever go quick when we are, in this type of discussion. Look, I'm Joe Preston. I'm the mayor of St. Thomas, and I love doing the job full time and going to work every day and making our community grow in a smart way. The council we've had to work with over the last 4 years has been second to none. I'm very pleased to see 6 out of 8 of those councillors wanting to come back, and I hope that also happens. Our community is growing at a pace that is manageable, but we must be aware of what we're doing from a housing, services, and amenities point of view. We are the most thriving community, as you said, the fastest growing community in Southern Ontario, aside from a couple. We've added some really neat uses to Pinafore Park and some other festivals in the downtown. We'll continue to do that, but we have to watch how we grow and be capable of being ready to do it. And I'm Joe Preston. Please vote for me for mayor for a growing, thriving community of St. Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. McCord.
Thank you again for hosting the event. It was a pleasure to meet you. My goal is to set an example for other communities to follow, not only for the way we tackle the homeless and affordability crisis, but also in how we generate revenue at City Hall. Commercial office space has the potential to transform the downtown core if placed in the right location. Highly educated professionals visiting the local shops is a very real possibility when we increase the number of employees in the heart of the city. We can build this space and offer rent-free access for startups in exchange for a small amount of equity in their company. Over time, this has huge potential. I foresee the next decade being a time of transformation globally with the transition to electric vehicles, the rapid advancement in artificial intelligence, and robotics technology. If we do not act now, all this opportunity will go to other communities. Over time, the equity gained in many companies will be much more valuable than any rent that could be collected. It is also a big incentive to bring these tech startups into our community. We have to be willing to do things differently to bring us into the future. This is just one of my many ideas I have to enrich our community going forward. Revenue generation at the municipal level needs visionary leadership. We can get a jump start into the future by electing someone highly skilled in foresight. It is time to change how we do things as a municipality. Let's think outside the box. I encourage everyone to get out and vote using the online system. It is much easier now for people who suffer from depression and anxiety and physical disabilities. Please visit the stthomas.ca website for more information about online voting. Starting on October 11th, vote for the future. Vote Greg McCart for mayor. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. McCart. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you again, Dan. In the coming weeks, residents will again step up to the task of choosing a mayor. The choice is clear. Mr. McCart definitely shows a passion for our community, but does not have any experience necessary to continue to move our community forward. Mr. Preston brings platitudes, but again, no platform to the discussion. I will not tell you I've done all I can, or it's not my problem, or not respond at all. I am not too old or tired, as Mr. Preston stated to me on September 21st, following the Kinsman candidate meet and greet night. I am the candidate who has demonstrated leadership today with a vision for our future. I have walked our streets. I have talked to many people who share my belief that while St. Thomas has its scars, we have come a long way, and what lies at our feet is a well of untapped potential that can only be harnessed and engaged with the right visionary talent and dedicated leadership. I am that visionary talent, and I am that dedicated leader. I have no personal agenda. I do not represent any private interest or groups or any political party. I pay the same property taxes that you do. And I come to this office with integrity and a desire to work and represent the needs of all residents. We need to do better, and we can do better. Anything is possible when we work together. I believe ensuring that St. Thomas maintains its enviable quality of life and provides a home for businesses of all sizes to grow, prosper, and create jobs. And I will bring the voices of all residents to the table and advocate for solutions that fit our needs. I will help to ensure safe, affordable housing is available to everyone. I come to this position with the integrity and the desire to represent all of you. And I humbly ask for your support and your vote on October 24th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and now you have, I'm hoping, the information you need to make the right choice for you on October 24th between Heather Jackson, Greg McCart, or Joe Preston. Do get out and vote. The value and the importance of democracy and exercising your right to vote is so important to our municipality. And if anything, as voters, we have a greater impact on municipal elections than we do at provincial or federal. Thank you for watching, and best of luck to all of our candidates on October 24th. And now you are in the know. Take care.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Hi, I'm Melissa Yee, Community Engagement Specialist at Rogers TV. Volunteering at Rogers TV during my high school years provided a great opportunity for me to learn on-air reporting and writing, which helped me get into the college I wanted with that experience. The skills I learned while volunteering at Rogers TV were invaluable, and it has now led me down my